Welcome to episode number 52 of Hoop Talk Fanatics. I am here with the Imman previewing the Raptors this upcoming season, and I'm excited to hear her thoughts are on the upcoming season. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question is, what are your initial thoughts going into a new season with the Raptors not being with Nick Nurse as the head coach?
I think it's interesting because I think if you had asked me that last year, I would have said, he is their forever coach. Like it felt like they found the guy who was going to be here long term. This is an organization that really prides itself on stability and continuity. And, Dwayne Casey, the head coach before Nick Nurse, was not even Masai Ujiri's hire, but still, because there was such an emphasis on continuity and stability, he stayed for as long as he did. So I would have been surprised if you'd asked me a year ago, but I think everything that transpired last year makes sense that they're here where they are. I think a new page is really important for this team. I think, flipping that page over, turning away from Nick Nurse, it very much felt like, he had that press conference in Philadelphia during the season, towards the end of the season, and then joins the Philadelphia 76ers. That's, I can understand why people would raise their eyebrows at that. And there clearly was a lot of chemistry issues, and a lot of the talk around the Raptors right now feels optimistic because of change. And I think that comes down to the head coach. So I'm excited about what Darko Rajakovic could do at the helm of this team. And I'm excited about the idea of a new coach and sort of turning the page and flipping over from, post-championship
run. What are your thoughts on the Raptors' first 5 games starting the season?
Ooh, let me take a look so the first 5 games, they start off at home versus Minnesota, then out to Chicago, Philadelphia, Portland, Milwaukee. I think it's going to be a test. I think Minnesota to start off. I mean, if you're going to get the Timberwolves, maybe getting them a little bit early is not that bad, considering who knows. Well, I think it might take them a little bit just to find that rhythm with Cat back and having, Gobert and everything there. They're a team that has too much talent to not figure something out, whether it be a trade or something down the line. So maybe catching them early is not that bad. Maybe catching Chicago early is not that bad. Maybe Philadelphia with a new coach is not that bad. These seems like teams that have, some questions heading into the season. And then Portland, which is a team that's tanking. I think this is a good test to sort of gauge where the Raptors are at, because no one knows what direction the Raptors are planning on going in. So, I think there's some good tests in there, of course, with Philadelphia, Minnesota, Chicago, all teams that should, I think, depending on what the Raptors do, should be good tests for the Raptors to see and gauge where they're at. So not mad at it.
What are your thoughts on the home and home series versus the Knicks on December 1st and 11th?
December 1st and 11th, so it's spread out, because I hate the new, and I get it for travel purposes. I understand why the NBA is doing that, but I hate the home and homes, or sometimes it's just like literal home and home for one team instead of like a traditional home and home series. Due to travel reasons, they sort of do those back-to-back games. I don't like those, but sort of spread apart, I don't mind them as much. The Knicks are a team in your division. You're going to have to see them 4 times. And hopefully the Raptors have an identity by December and can put up a challenge to a division rival.
What are your thoughts on the whole division? And who do you see making the playoffs?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the Eastern Conference in general is kind of in flux a little bit right now. Of course, you're familiar. The Philadelphia 76ers have a ton of James Harden questions. What is happening there? Will he report? Will he get traded? What will he get traded for? I think there are tons of questions there, and what that triggers for a guy like Joel Embiid, also with a new head coach coming into the fray. So there are a lot of questions with Philadelphia. I still think that they should be at the top of the division. I think if James Harden returns, they would be my favorites in the division to win the division. And really, I think do a lot of damage in the Eastern Conference. They might, I haven't decided yet, be my pick in the East, depending on the James Harden situation. But again, if he chooses to go, if you don't get a good return, if things start to fall out, what does Joel Embiid do? Like, things can look really bad for them as well. There are a lot of questions there. Boston, I'm interested in Boston. They're a good team. They obviously should be very good, but I think losing Marcus Smart is huge. I think the lack of playmakers on that team is really, really big. I think it's a big deal. And Kristaps Porzingis, of course, is hurt right now as well. So I think there are a lot of questions for Boston, especially out early. It'd be really interesting to keep an eye on them early to see how they fare as they sort of work through not having a guy like Marcus Smart, not having their leader and their best playmaker, quite honestly, and then not having Kristaps Porzingis, the guy that they traded him for, at least at the start of the season. So I think Boston should have some question marks, but they should also be top 2 in the division alongside the Philadelphia 76ers. And then you have the Knicks and the Nets, teams that also have some questions. I think the Knicks have a little bit more stability. A lot of their guys played in FIBA, so these guys have good reps, and I kind of don't mind the Knicks heading into the season. I think they'll be fine. And then the Nets, another guy, of course, who was in FIBA, but I think the Nets, of course, have questions about how are they going to improve their roster? What does Ben Simmons look like? Does he return? There's a lot of sort of ramp up questions there. So there are a lot of questions in the Eastern Conference. I think the Raptors have some of the biggest questions for sure, but I don't look around the rest of the division and see answered questions. And so it's hard to predict. Do I think they'll make the playoffs? I struggle saying yes. But they also gave up a pick this year. So they have no incentive to not try and make the playoffs this year.
What are your thoughts on the rookies coming out of last year's draft, and how many of them do you think will make the team?
On the Raptors specifically, or so I'm excited. I don't watch a lot of like college basketball. I don't watch a lot of G League. I haven't, at least this past year, watched a lot of G League basketball. So I haven't seen a lot of the sort of rookie class in general, except when I was doing some prep before the Raptors draft. And I'm excited about a guy like Grady Dick. I'm excited that he'll get some time because the Raptors have desperately needed spacing. They've desperately needed shooting. So you can imagine that he will fit in well to the roster, just in terms of, bringing in that floor spacing that's so desperately needed, especially after losing a guy like Fred VanVleet, who coming off of a bad shooting year, but also the team's best 3-point shooter. And then with Markieff Noel, I mean, he wants to be the best player in the NBA and wants to win a chip and be a finals MVP. So sky's the limit. I'm not going to tell him that he can't do it. I'd love to watch it. I'd be very excited if it does happen. So yeah, I'm excited about the young guys coming in.
My last question is, what is your prediction of the regular season, and how far do you think they make a run in the playoffs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. And I feel like that's a cop-out answer, but that's only because OG Anunoby is an expiring contract. Pascal Siakam is an expiring contract. Gary Trent Jr. is an expiring contract. So they have 3 guys that could potentially be coming off the books. They don't have their pick for this year, so they should have no incentive to tank, but also they don't want to run the risk of losing any of their guys in free agency, just like they did with Fred VanVleet the year before. So I think it's really going to be important to figure a direction and try to go somewhere. I mean, ideally, I'd like to cover a winning team. I would love it if they would win and try to make the playoffs. But without having a point guard, they have Dennis Schroeder, and he just had, MVP of the FIBA World Cup. And they have Scotty Barnes taking that next leap. I think a lot of the answers to this question depends on the leap that Scotty Barnes has made, the leap that OG Anunoby has made, the leap that, some of the rookies coming in, can they slot in and play? Because this is a team that also very much needs rotation guys. And so there are a lot of questions. I think the team is deeper than they were last year. The addition of Dennis Schroeder and Markieff Noel is what I wanted to say, and Jalen McDaniels. There we go. I think those are, we have some more guys, hopefully, that can slot into the rotation, which could bode well. But and hopefully Otto Porter Jr. will be back. So yeah, so I think the team is deeper than they were last year, but I don't know if their ceiling is as high as it was last year. But they never reached their ceiling last year. So maybe just toss that aside and hope that Scotty Barnes can take that next leap, because that changes the entire trajectory of this Raptors team.
It should be a very interesting season, especially with the play-in tournament.
Yeah.
And before we end this episode, what are your thoughts on the play-in tournament, and do you like it?
Yeah, like the new sort of the new tournament that the NBA is adding in sometime in December, was it?
Yeah.
I mean, the play-in tournament in general, the Raptors just lost that game. And hey, it boded well. They got a lottery pick, as opposed to just losing in the first round. We got to see Miami go do damage. But this new tournament, I'm interested in it. I'm interested to see how it works. I'm interested to see, especially, I think the answer to this question is how motivated are players going to be for it. So I think that changes everything. I think that, like, the team that wins it should have a better winning percentage at the end of the year than everybody else, because they played 83 games. But then the team that loses it shouldn't have a worse win percentage at the end of the year because they only lost the final game. So it'll be interesting. I'm interested to watch it. I'm interested to understand it a little bit more. But it really always comes down to just like how interested are players going to be in that final game.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how it turns out. Since it's the first season of it, and thank you so much for coming on,
Yeah, thank you for
talking
having me.
basketball, and hope to have you back on as the season progresses.
Sounds great. Let me know whenever.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.